Rolling.
Roll it. Welcome back to the Volly House Podcast, episode 19. We are here at Colca Studios. So if you need a firehouse built, give them a call. Download the Firewire app, available on iOS and Android. And go to volleyhousepodcast.com to ask us questions or send in stories or videos you'd like us to review. Also, give us a follow on all social media platforms at Volly House Podcast. And we will start with Alpine Software. If you've listened to this podcast long enough or been in the fire service long enough, you probably know that 10 different fire departments will do the same thing 10 different ways. Every department is different, whether it's scheduling, permits, reporting, points tracking, inventory, or truck checks. Chances are high that your department does it differently from the one down the street. Hopefully, you're managing most of this with software. Is your software vendor putting you into their box? When you ask for a small change to your system, do they just add it to the list, or do they get it done? Maybe you bought another piece of software just to get scheduling right. Next thing you know, you have 5 different vendors to manage your firehouse just because your original vendor couldn't make a small change. Alpine Software's Red NMX is the all-in-one fire software that fits the needs of your department. Their average customer has been with them for 19 years. Why? They have dedicated people to set up your system, convert your data, and get you trained. They have a U.S.-based call and email support staff. If you're tired of, we'll add it to the list. Join the hundreds of other departments that have switched to Alpine Software. All right, well, our guest today, Chief Aaron Heller. Welcome to the show, and thank you for coming out. I know it was a tumultuous drive for you from New Jersey.
It was a 3-hour tour.
Yeah, a bit of a drive. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Give us a little bit on your background.
So I retired a couple years ago from Hamilton, New Jersey Fire Department. At the time when I retired, it was basically a fully career department. But when I went on it in 1990, we were basically paid guys supplementing the volunteers. And 9 separate fire districts in a 44 square mile town, about 100,000 people. I mean, if you really look at the census numbers, I'm sure they're not telling the truth. It's a lot bigger than they say, because then you'd have to provide city services, so God forbid. But busy place, and I retired as deputy chief in charge of the training division, but still had a platoon, still was running calls, still taking care of things. And it was a great gig. It was a great place to work. It was a busy place. Throughout my career, it was a busy place, and they're still very busy. And in fact, unfortunately today, I'd be remiss if I didn't say it, we found out one of our captains passed away this morning, very unexpectedly.
Oh, man. Sorry to hear that.
Appears to have been natural causes. The jury's still out, I'm sure, but it looks like it was natural causes and just didn't wake up.
Wow.
And a young guy in his 40s.
Oh, man.
But they're a good fire department, and like I said, I was blessed to work there all the years I did. I came up through there. I started we got hired as paid drivers. That's what they called us. We were basically housemen.
Interesting.
And we were kind of janitors with a badge who drove the rig in the beginning. And I got hired. I was a 20-year-old kid.
Huh.
So
wow.
Here I am, a 20-year-old kid, and they say, here's this brand new rig that they had just put in this firehouse a year earlier. And they hired 4 of us. They had already had drivers. They wanted a second driver on duty. So that's what they did.
Was that like just an 8-hour shift, or was it a 24-hour shift?
We were doing 10s and 14s back then.
10s and 14s,
So
wow.
yeah, we were doing a Philly shift. 2 10-hour days, 2 14-hour nights, and we were off for 4 days. Not a bad gig.
No?
So
my whole career,
20-year-old kid,
yeah.
why not?
Oh yeah. I thought I'd hit the lottery, Yeah. But I started as a volunteer back when I was a 14-year-old kid in Burlington County, New Jersey, a little place called Juliustown. Probably did 100 runs a year at the most, Little country fire department. My sister was a 911 operator in that county, and she married into a fire department family, and I used to hang out with them, and they were like, well, when you turn 14, if you want to do this, I thought, well, looks cool.
So was it like a junior program?
Yeah, it was but there was no program. It was just you joined. They didn't even give anybody gear. The gear hung on the rigs, right? So literally the call came in, you hopped on the rig, and you grabbed gear that was hanging on the rig, and that's it was hip boots and coats and helmets.
Wow.
Gloves were in the coat pockets. And you grabbed a pair of boots. If they were 12s and you wore 9s, you're out of luck.
You wear whatever was there.
That's how it worked. But and when I turned 18, I joined where I lived in New Egypt. which is Ocean County, New Jersey. I joined New Egypt Volunteer Fire Company, and that's where I've been a volunteer there since I was 18. And when I retired from the job, I went back active there. I don't make a lot of runs. I don't make nearly as many as I should, but I try to hang out there when I can.
Right.
Yeah.
So, make an adjustment there, Phil.
Just get the mic a little closer.
There you go.
Picks up a little better.
All right, cool. So we do this segment on the show called Suspended or Not.
Nope, I
We
gotta
have
get glasses
some
on.
submissions, and this is just something we've always done.
Frontline optics.
Frontline optics.
I'm not the glasses guy.
Yeah.
I don't wear glasses.
So if you go to frontlineoptics.com, use code VHP15 for 15% off. So this was a submission. When I was a chief, I had a member that was really drunk and went into a 7-Eleven. He was in his gear because we were at a parade where it was too cold and snowy for a Class A uniform. He laid down in the newspaper pile and fell asleep. It wasn't until a neighboring chief went in the next morning to get a coffee and the store owner showed him the video, and then I got a call. Total jackass move. Suspended or not.
Oh, you suspended.
Yeah.
You can't clean that up right away. You just can't make that go away.
That's. I think that's the first time that
Yeah,
we've had
right off
some.
the bat.
And funny enough, I followed up with this, and the guy was suspended for that.
Earned.
Yeah.
He
Definitely
Did
earned
he
on
earn
that
it?
one.
Did he ask for it?
Yeah.
That's almost as good as the Richardson one, right? Where they stole the carpet at 7-Eleven.
Yeah, I was gonna say we have a lot of
That's another good one.
7-Eleven
We're
stories.
in fire
here.
department jackets.
Oh, man.
That's
Yeah,
great.
We do some dumb things, man.
We do.
So that's the other part of this segment. We have guests. We always ask the guest if they have a story that they remember that was maybe suspension worthy, maybe
That you
not.
could actually say on the air.
Yeah.
There's some you can't,
I
obviously.
don't know. You know, we did a lot of stupid things, and we never got caught. You know, we got fortunate. Honestly, back then, especially back in the
No cameras.
mid to late '80s, there was a lot of drinking by all of us. So I don't remember some of it, and and honestly, there was a lot of drinking. There was no cell phones. There was no cameras, so we didn't have much recording of the things that went on.
Right.
But I mean, man, I couldn't even think of something that most of the disciplinary
That would
problems.
be appropriate to
Yeah,
share.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
half the battle with
Yeah,
a lot
that
of.
is-
We
that
have
is
some
part
good
of it.
ones that you really
That we
can't.
can't
really
say.
I can tell you,
yeah.
as a volley chief, I suspended a few guys over the years, and it was not anything like funny. It was just being complete jackass.
Yeah.
And not doing the right thing type thing. So it wasn't even like funny, good story wise. You know.
Gotcha.
Just bad
I mean,
behavior.
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of funny stories about the career side of the job, stuff that went on like we all do. And again, we'd have to change the names.
Yeah.
Well, it's not supposed to leave the four walls, so
That's
you know,
right.
we keep it in.
That's right.
Close the big red door.
But I remember coming home from a parade one time, and back then we were still riding the tailboard, and having to strap the guy in. Literally, we didn't just put him strapped in with one of the straps that hung on the back. We had to tie him in
Tie
as
him
well.
down, yeah.
So yeah, we basically tied the dude against the back of the rig.
Why,
So
'cause
we
he was
wouldn't-
so drunk?
He was so drunk. Yeah. and literally, oh yeah. And then the guys are on the sides of him, holding him up, and he's puking off the back. Of the rig.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was back today. You'd be done. You'd be
No,
done.
Yeah, for sure.
But-
There'll be somebody recording you
Oh, yeah.
right from behind you
Oh,
with the
yeah.
phone.
Yeah.
This dude looked like Weekend at Bernie's, man. He was a mess. He was a mess.
Jesus.
Yeah.
There's another submission, not along the funny lines, but this is from somebody in Texas. It says, I'm a lieutenant in a volunteer department in Texas. Back in November, the department assigned self-paced online training. In February, in an officer meeting, the chief asked to provide the training for the department during our training nights over the self-paced course. The reason was nobody completed the training. Do you have a suggestion on? Do you have suggestions to get our members to complete this self-paced online training on their own?
Man, nobody wants to do self-paced online training. It's so dull, and it's you're just kind of checking the box when you're doing it. But they've got to do it. It's if the chief puts it down, and a lot of these places, they're trying to get their ISO points and things like that through it. So it's just got to be made and clear to them the importance of it, and they've got to do it. It's so easy too. I mean, you're checking the box. Most online training is simply checking the box. So I would say there's really no excuse for it. I mean, the bosses, whoever the volunteer chief and his officers are, they've got to sit down and talk to everybody and explain. You got to explain the importance of it, not just to these guys, but as a whole for the department. Like I said, we do a lot of training with the training company in Louisiana and South Carolina and down there. ISO seems to be like a really way bigger thing to them than it does to us.
Seems everywhere south.
Yeah. Like I know it's important to us, but it ain't that important. Like we don't focus probably like we should on it. Those guys do. So for them to get their points, they've got to show the training hours, they've got to show completion, and they're trying to affect things in their communities. You got to get it done. It's awful hard to go out to your community. Hey, look, we're doing all this good stuff for you when we aren't really doing it. When we're not holding up our end of it. So as a chief, I would have that conversation with the guys. Hey, you want me to do things for you? We're gonna do this together. You got to pick up your end of it a little bit.
Yeah, I did a follow-up with that submission, and it seemed like they just kind of gave it to the guys, but didn't. There was a due date on it, but there was really no repercussion.
No follow-up probably.
Yeah.
And reminding people to get the job
and
done.
It was because one of the questions I asked him was this like a state or federal requirement, and it was.
Oh, really?
That's
Yeah.
even more important. Than,
So,
you're talking funding. You're talking a lot of things.
yeah.
That's when they start shutting you down. When
Yeah.
you don't complete
Right.
things.
Yeah.
That's important.
And sometimes it's just a lack of communication between the officers and the members, because firemen are the worst procrastinators ever. So you gotta push them sometimes. Hey, this stuff's due in a week, boys. Let's get to it. Make sure I haven't seen much. That kind of thing.
Right.
And communication is one of our biggest failures everywhere, whether it's on the fireground or off. And, somebody should have been following up to see how many people completed, like a percentage of people, and then saying, hey, we're not even close. Let's get on top of these guys to get it done.
Yep.
Right. Let's get into iCommand board, and then we'll get into some questions
You
here.
got the board over there?
I got it. I got to get it out. Yeah.
Every video we see from a career department incident shows an incident command board on scene. Yet, in many NIOSH LODD reports, a recurring finding is the lack of proper incident command. As a chief in the volunteer fire service, your responsibility is to ensure the safety of everyone operating at every incident. Gone are the days of managing this in your head or on a simple whiteboard. The owner of iCommand Board, a volunteer fire chief, took this challenge head on by developing a professional tool tailored for volunteer fire officers. These command boards are designed with size, affordability, and most importantly, accountability at the forefront. Packed with crucial information and checklists, they're built to help you stay organized and focused at every event. Visit iCommandBoard.com today and take the next step in ensuring the safety and success of your department. And mention that you saw it on the Volly House Podcast and get 10% off.
Well, just look at it.
Yeah.
You came up with a great design and very easy to use. And
It makes a lot of sense.
yep.
In your time as chief, did you use anything like this, any sort of system?
I did. I had command boards as a volunteer chief way back in the day. I was a volunteer chief from '94 to 2000. So I know that's like the Stone Ages, but and then I wasn't a chief again until 3 years before I retired, 2.5 years before I retired. So I did it. I was a chief very young in my career, and then I was a chief old in my career, but that was on the career side. But yeah, we used them quite a bit. We had back then we just had our own whiteboards that we were just writing on.
Just write on.
But then there were some people that were selling like the pre-made pads, like everything was on a pad, so you could
Paper pad and you rip them off.
yeah,
and
you rip them
that's
off
what
and
I
then
had.
you start and it worked good as long as you used it. Over time, when I was a young chief, I used it a lot more because I realized I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I really didn't.
And you couldn't remember things.
Now I really can't remember things. But you know what it was? As a young chief, I was really into the tactical side of things, and I understood tactics very well. I didn't understand command very well. And I think that was probably something that came with age and experience. But so as a young chief, I really needed to write down a lot more than I felt when I was older. I could run it from a portable radio on the front lawn, and I kept a notepad in my shirt pocket, and I could just scribble some notes. The minute it started to expand, though, you got to really start documenting things. And I found that was where I'd break out everything. And if we had something big, immediately, the SOP it was all coming out. So I think it's important, and I think especially just to jog your memory, having those check boxes and looking like, oh man, it's a time for a time check. A lot of places the dispatcher does it, but a a lot of places they don't.
Yeah, and the iCommand board, they have timers.
I saw that.
timer.
Yeah, I saw that, and
There's
I think
like 5 or
that's
6 in there.
So
Right?
you
Yeah.
can set airtime for different crews if
yeah.
you want.
I
nice.
saw that. That makes a lot of sense. Like look at like a RIT operation or something.
Yep.
We're going to be so tight on time. We got to be so cautious of getting them in and getting them out. I think that's great.
Yeah,
and,
and they customize them to district as well, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that listen, man. I'll send the information to my volunteer chief.
Yeah,
I
for
was
sure.
texting with him last night about some nozzle stuff. Ray will be happy.
Oh, Ray will be very happy.
They just
Head
bought,
nozzle.
they just bought one for the brush
Nice,
truck. So
nice.
yeah, but I'll send him the info.
Yeah, for sure.
Good thing.
Now, did you always have help? Did you have an aide when you were chief, or you
Never,
didn't?
never had an aide
Even in
unless
paid
it was
service too?
in the paid service. It was only if I had a light duty guy, and they
Right.
started that like right before I retired. And honestly, a couple of light duty guys I had, I was like, never mind, man. You just
I'll do it myself.
yeah, I'm cool. So.
So you're a single man chief, no assistant chiefs? Is that what you meant?
When I worked at the end of my career, the department we
Before the merge, you talk
before the merge, I was alone.
You were alone.
For sure, I was alone. After the merge, all 9 districts merged in the end of 2020 and
Now, they
started
were
in-
all paid departments? When
They were all combination,
combination.
mostly paid.
Okay.
At that point, we were a career department, really supplemented by volunteers, but not too many volunteers left. When the merge happened, there was a lot of games played, and
Of course.
originally it was going to be, well, we're keeping our volunteers. They're going to be the minor league system, which I thought was a brilliant idea. The original guy who was going to be the chief was my old chief, and he felt that it was great to have that feeder system.
Absolutely.
And it made sense. And
Or
these-
stepping
Yeah,
system.
and these guys, we would already train them. They already had, our gear, so we didn't have to go buying new gear or anything. They understood what we wanted, and it would have made sense. To me, it would have just made sense. That's not what the union always
Of
is
course.
looking towards, and that's not what it's really not what this mayor wanted. And even though he said he did, he didn't.
Yeah, it didn't happen.
So when we merged,
That's terrible,
We
too.
went. Yeah,
It really is.
No, they burned them right out of the place, and that was the end of the volunteers, basically. Other than like some fire police.
Yeah, I see combination systems working better, and it's a good stepping stone for younger firefighters to see what it's all about, to get involved. Like, even for me being a volunteer, I probably would have never been a paid firefighter if I didn't know anything about the volunteer system.
Me too.
And my love and my drive and the passion for the volunteer system, I want that to stay.
Yeah.
But I know we also need a lot of help, especially out here. We are so busy.
Yep.
Some of these departments, not everyone, but there's smaller departments that don't do as much, but we need help. The volunteers are getting burnt out very quickly. There's too many calls, and you got to do something to help the system.
Yeah, yeah. When we went down, when I went on duty with that, I was a deputy chief, so we had a deputy and a battalion on every platoon. So it was great. We split the town in half. Really, we both were going on everything that sounded like work. Right. The deputy, I had full.
So who wants to miss a fire?
Exactly. Yeah.
I wanna go to fires.
You're going to fires. Yeah. Even if you're not on the radio, you're floating
You're
over
going,
there.
right.
But then we got into the politics and
Yeah.
we cut the budget, and next thing you know, well, we're not replacing. If a chief calls off, we ain't replacing a chief.
Wow.
So now either the battalion or the deputy, if one of us called off, the other one had the whole town.
Wow.
So
That's
you're by
insane.
yourself in a busy place that's 40 square miles. And it
Yeah, that's a big.
in a way it was good, in a way it was bad. It made, for me as a chief, I had to be on my game. I felt that I had to be sharper. I rarely slept because I was listening to everything that went on because I had to know who was where.
Right.
So that kind of sucked. But
And this was Central Jersey?
yeah, we border Trenton, right around
Yeah.
the city of Trenton. So it's everything from literally from really, really rich McMansions and some farms in one little corner, all the way to some of the best nasty places you'd want to be. You know, we had a little of everything. The turnpike runs through us, Northeast trains run through us, 295, 195, all of that.
Yeah,
so
busy roads.
It's a busy place.
Yeah.
It was a great place to work, and
Yeah.
still is for the guys if the politicians would get out of their asses. You know?
Now, how
That's
big?
a massive district because we have.
Yeah.
We're like looking at what 5 square miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm 28. I
You're
got
bigger,
a pretty
yeah.
big district.
Yeah, where I volunteer is so different though, right? Because I'm only 20 minutes from work where I volunteer at. It's that same size. It's 44 square miles, but it's only about 8 to 10,000 people. So it's a lot of farmland, a lot of preserved land, very little industry. It's basically a bedroom community to Philly or New York. So we're really the center of the state. You could be 60 minutes, you're in Manhattan. Well, on a good day, not today.
Not today.
and 45 to 50 minutes, you can be in South Philly. So
Wow.
Right.
and
And how many
that's-
calls did they do there?
I think maybe with EMS, counting the ambulance itself, they're probably doing 12 to 1,500.
Wow.
Fire side, they're only doing about 300 runs. But that's a combination department now. And
That's combination.
We
Wow.
we had to create a combination department. And I could tell you, man, we stirred the pot.
And 300 calls?
Yeah.
And it's combination.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Because there
And
was,
we're doing 3,000.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was simply because there was just nobody
There's
around.
nobody to do it.
60 some percent. I think at the time 63 to 65% of the runs were day runs.
Right.
There was nobody to answer them.
Yep.
You know, you'd have a couple old dudes and a couple of us, and that was it. And it was a very good fire company. You know, we might only take in 300 runs, but we were probably going to 50 fires.
Right.
So it was
I'll
great.
take those odds.
Yeah. We were going to everybody,
great odds.
and we were going to everybody's
Run
fires.
to worker ratio is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And we went to everybody's fires because we were the bigger, more recognized.
Well, you're surrounded by more departments,
We
probably.
were surrounded by a bunch of little places that had worse problems than us, for the most part.
Gotcha.
So we were running, and they're still that way. They're still that way, but now they're combination, and that's a whole
Right.
other game. You know?
Yeah. Well, that's basically my department. I mean, we got to the point where it's just too busy. I mean, we're doing
Yeah.
3,800 runs, and
Sure.
2,000 is really EMS, but
Yeah.
you're still looking at 1,800
It's a lot of
fire
runs.
calls, and during the day it's just almost impossible. And what are you going to do? You need help. You can't have myself and a probie on a rig all day long, or
And that's-
3 people,
and that's
2 exteriors and 1 interior. It doesn't work.
And this is all over the country.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. I mean, like I said, we do a lot of teaching in a lot of different places. And Louisiana, we do a lot, which is we just got in that area, and it's worked for us and for them, and it's been really cool. But one of the departments that we work with there is one of the largest volunteer departments in the country, and they will still put 30 guys on the street during the day.
That's awesome.
2 in the afternoon, the Thibodeau Fire Department, they might put 60 if it sounds like work, literally. And my kid volunteers there. He lives down there, and he actually moved down there a few years ago.
Why do you think that is?
They are, I think, I look at it in multiple ways. One is they never have lost an ounce of their tradition. These guys hammer it in like the sons become firemen. Like dad was a fireman, grandpa was a fireman, great-grandpa was a fireman. You're going to
Generational.
be a fireman. And it is generational. So there's a lot of that. And some of those guys are only firemen by name,
Right.
because, hey, this guy's dad was a fireman, so I'm going to join. I got the T-shirt, and once in a while I show up. But a lot of them take it really seriously. And
And it sounds like they do a lot of training, which
they
is
do
great.
a ton of training, and they are the kings of the city. They run that place, and it's a pretty big place. It's a place that up here would absolutely be a career fire department, no doubt. And they're still doing it with volunteers, and their numbers are dipping too a little, but they do this fair, right? They just did it last week or 2 weeks ago, and they raised over $1 million at this fair.
What?
Jesus.
Crap.
Swear to God, over $1 million profit.
In a weekend?
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Holy moly.
That's gotta
I'm
be a
telling you,
sick fair.
Where is this? Just so listeners
It's
can
in
know
it's in
exactly where.
Thibodaux, Louisiana.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Bro, we went last year. Me and Bart Simpson went last
Oh,
year
Bart
just
went?
to see it all.
That's
And
awesome.
We got an Airbnb and hung out with them the whole time, man. Yeah, it was a good time.
I mean, there's some big fairs here, but I don't.
No,
I
Yeah,
don't
nothing,
think
not
they,
pulling in $1
well,
million.
What they do, not only, so they have their own fairgrounds attached to their training center, big piece of property. They just added onto it the other day from what I heard, bought some more. And so it's a typical summer carnival, you know, with all the rides and all that stuff. But then on top of that, they do an auction. And let me tell you, the elite of the elite throughout Louisiana show up at this auction and want to show everybody, you know, you got doctors, lawyers, judges, you know, big construction guys, you name it, politicians, and they want to show each other who's got a bigger checkbook.
Right.
And I'm telling you, man.
And what do they auction off?
You name it. So
Really?
last year on scene, we donated a chainsaw carved eagle. I drove it to Louisiana from New Jersey. There's a guy that does them actually on my mom's property. And I made one for Trump. He's got one at Bedminster. He's got one at State Police. And he does all these carvings all over the place. And so I said, we're going to donate to these guys. You know, we take a lot of their money. You know, they train with us. They pay us a lot of money. We're really family there. Like I said, my son's a volunteer there now, even though he's on a job in another city. And we're going to go down. We're going to be a bigger part of this. So I bought it from the guy, put it in a U-Haul trailer, and drove the sucker all the way to Louisiana.
Wow, that's awesome.
The thing sold for like $8,000 or $10,000.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And it was big. I mean, I needed a
cow.
U-Haul trailer to hold this thing, you know. But literally, it sold for like $8,000 or $10,000.
That's
just
awesome.
that one item.
So now this is a 100% volunteer department?
100%. Even the chiefs, nobody's even getting a per diem. I don't think there's any LoSAP in Louisiana that I've ever heard of. Nothing. And these guys, they do it for the community, the goodness of their heart. You know,
They EMS and fire?
they only do first response EMS when an ambulance isn't available. So they're not transporting. They have career ambulances from like hospital-based or private companies that handle EMS. Don't handle it very well, just like up here. But
Wow.
so yeah, but and run-wise, I couldn't even tell you how many runs they're probably doing. Maybe 500 or 600, maybe more than that. I don't know.
So what? This is like a case study.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
What the hell is
I
going
literally
on?
want to reach
Let's
out
get
to
some-
somebody
doing-
from there to talk to us.
They're
That's
doing.
what I
Oh,
want.
we could do
They're
that in a
doing less
heartbeat.
than 1,000 runs,
Probably.
raising $1 million, which
Yeah.
is like pushing district budgets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, a quarter of a budget.
They
100%.
just built a brand new firehouse that just opened a couple weeks ago. They tore down the old one, built a brand new beautiful firehouse. They've got, I think, 3 or 4 of the firehouses are less than 10 years old now, and they're building a brand new training facility, firehouse basically, where the rescue's staged there, dispatch center, and they're in the process. That'll probably be built by the end of the year or so.
Now, are they like a fire district? Do they take taxpayer money in, or do you know how that works? Or?
They get certain amount of money from the city.
Okay.
I guess down there they call them millages. It's like a tax like us. I don't know how that really works for them, but it's not a massive amount. Most of it's done through fundraising and so forth.
Wow.
we gotta get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
I gotta
say the name one more time.
It's called the Thibodeau Volunteer Fire Department.
Thibodeau Volunteer Fire Department.
Yeah.
It sounds.
If
sounds
anybody
Cajun.
from
We need
Thibodeau
to-
is
it's
listening,
Cajun.
somebody's
Yeah, we're gonna-
probably listening
They'll be
because
listening.
you're on
They'll
here.
be
So
listening.
Yeah,
we got to get somebody.
I
to
gotta
give
get
us some
some
info.
information. I gotta reach out to
I'll
somebody.
get you the info.
Yeah.
You know
Also,
what we gotta? I
I'll be
would love-
there. I'll be there in another 3 weeks. We're doing.
Can we do a
another-
show down there? Let's
That'd be cool.
Let's bring the
I
show
love-
to the fair.
How far is it from New Orleans?
About an hour.
Oh yeah, we gotta
I'm
go
in.
down there.
Yeah, it's about an hour.
I
south
still
of
haven't
New
been there.
Orleans.
It's on my list.
New Orleans is. That place shouldn't even be real. That place should not be allowed. It's insane down there.
But they really do have. There's a culture, and they do have retention. A lot. The other thing they did was they have college there. They have Nichols State University, so they started a student program.
Live-ins?
Yeah,
Do they have live-ins or
They're not live-ins. They're from the university. They still stay on campus or whatever. That's the other thing. Nobody responds to the firehouse except the chauffeurs there. Everybody shows up at the scene.
Oh, they go to the scene.
It's
All
so
right.
a
everybody.
couple Nassau County departments do that.
Everybody goes to the scene, and the chauffeurs
There
bring
might
the
be a
rigs.
couple East End departments still do that.
Yeah?
I don't know.
Yeah. But,
there were some that
they
were
got-
doing that.
Like the first time I saw it happen, I was like, "Holy shit! I can't figure out."
That's
how
a lot
this-
of cars.
how all the stuff's flying everywhere, you know.
And how is
But-
that? How dense is that area?
It's pretty dense. They have country, and they do have some farmland and stuff, but it's kind of city downtown, and it's like my son lives just on the outskirts, so where he's at, there's farmland in his area, but it's pretty dense, and there again they have a very varied population, from the ultra rich, literally the ultra rich who have private jets, and the whole 9 yards, oil field money. They've got a gentleman who lives there. The family owns a massive amount of grocery stores. The corporate sponsors of the Saints, that kind of thing.
Can they sponsor us?
Maybe.
We need some
Yeah, there
sponsors.
you go.
They're fabulous people. And but then they've got the ultra poor. And I
Right.
mean, the trailers that you would drive past some of these trailers on the side of a road and think, wow, when are they going to tear that down?
Yeah,
and
nobody's
throw it
in
the
there.
dumpster. And there's a family of 8 living there.
Wow.
So
That's terrible.
That's
Yeah.
super interesting. I would love to learn more about what they're doing.
And this contradicts the whole dynamic of, like, I put out those feeds and stuff,
Yeah.
and it's like suffering fire department, resources are low, manpower is low. This is like the polar opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
crazy.
that's everywhere, though. I mean, you have departments that really succeed and do a great job, and then you have others that don't. And
Yeah.
we see that all over.
Right, yeah, you get that even around here. There's,
Yeah.
we were talking about it earlier, like there was a department up here that for a long time had a waiting list. Like you could only join their EMS
we
company.
Had one years ago.
when I
a long
joined,
time ago.
there was still a waiting list.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then but then there was like another department, the same time frame that just could not get out for calls.
Yeah.
And it's always like, all right, like what is the dynamic there? What is
Is it a leadership problem? Is it a
Exactly, yeah.
Well,
what is the issue?
In the end, I think all of this comes down to people, right? It comes down
We're
to
in the people business.
We are in the people business, and I think it comes down to how we, as the leadership of a volunteer fire department, are perceived in our community, and that falls into how we behave and the things we do. So how we're perceived in our community, I don't think recruitment's that hard in a lot of places. The retention's a bitch, because if you don't do it all the way you should be doing it, why would anybody want to be there?
right?
And so the retention is, we've been focusing, we call it recruitment and retention. They are two very, very different things.
Right.
I see that
Very
all the
different
time.
things. I could go out and recruit at the local high school, and we do that. New Egypt has a really nice program. One of my guys, one of my buddies, Don Kernan, started that program for New Egypt. And our junior member program there has been a feeder system for our career guys in other places. They got jobs other places. They did a great job with it. I think they're still trying to do it. I haven't been involved in it as much. It's not nearly what it was. But they worked right with the job placement lady at the school, and she's fabulous. So most of those guys now are the officers of that fire company, or have already cycled through and are off running their families and are kind of out now. But that's where it came from. So you can recruit young and you can get them in, but what have you got for them? Number one, are you training them? Are you treating them right? Do they see dysfunction in the firehouse? Do they see guys always fighting? Do they see guys who don't really give a shit about each other? Because my own volunteer fire company, and I don't want to besmirch anybody, but they've got their problems. And it falls down to leadership.
So
It's all leadership.
to follow that question, being that you were a career chief and also a volunteer chief, what are some things that you did different as a volunteer chief? Because as a career chief, you got guys that are there, that's their job. And then you have people that are volunteers, and you mentioned, with the whole retention thing, keeping people happy and stuff like that. How did you kind of make that shift?
I don't think I did a lot differently, honestly. I try to treat them, even and my volunteers too, I try to treat them as professionals, as gentlemen. I tried to give them every opportunity possible, right? So a good example would be, and let me preface this with, I volunteered under some really good chiefs, guys who I thought showed me the right way to do it. They were a little more country, a little probably less formally educated, but they were really good people, and they got it. And in their other lives, in their real lives, like one chief, he had been a career firefighter at Fort Dix, left there for whatever reasons, and started his own business, and was a very successful guy for a long time. But he gave me a lot of good advice over the years. Another guy that was there before me, Rusty Arnold. Rusty he was only chief for a year that I was under him, but he was a guy who was a manager or a supervisor for the state of New Jersey at one of the big buildings in Trenton. He was in charge of it. So he knew how to work with people and talk to people and kind of get the most out of his people, I think. And I kind of patterned a little bit of that, you know, a little bit, not all. You know, I was young and cocky, and I did a lot of stupid shit, I'm sure.
I think we all have.
Yeah, I mean, if I could go back, I'd be a far better chief today than I was when I was a 20-some-year-old guy. But they knew how to take care of their people, and I felt that was, I learned that early on. And I probably learned that. My dad owned business, and he had a lot of people that worked for him, and he took care of these guys way better than most of them deserved. Right? Literally, they didn't treat him nearly as well as he treated them.
Interesting.
But he was always, well, that's on them, that's not on me. And
Right.
I felt, and I learned that way too. Like, listen, if I treat them good and they treat me shitty back, well, that's not on me, right? I'll deal with that. But I just felt that be honest with them, be upfront with them, set expectations. I believe in the volunteer fire service. We're not giving them money. You can only give them so many T-shirts and job shirts, you know. Give them all the training they could possibly get if they want that, if they're willing to do it. So back then I budgeted $35,000 a year as a training for the training budget for the volunteer fire company. Nobody had that budget back then, right? Nobody was doing that because it was, oh my God, that's a lot of money. And then we were a small department. And I said, but if we do that, we keep giving to them. Number one, they're going to be better. We need good firemen, right? We want them to be good at what they do, move up, get better, you know, be there for the people, the whole 9 yards. So there was a time we were sending like 6 or 8 guys to FDIC.
Wow.
Here we are now. That was in the late 90s. Here we are in 2025, and they'll be lucky if they still have that training budget.
Right.
With a bunch of career guys and 20-some volunteers.
And I think the majority of us, I think, you know, a lot of it comes back to training and education. I said this a lot, but people join the volunteer fire service because they want to do things. They want to go to fires. Like they see going to accidents. They see the pictures and the photos and they say, I want to do that. Yeah. And there's not a lot of it anymore. So how do you do something is you give them more training. I think giving them a lot of training and good quality training, especially hands-on training, makes them want to be there.
I agree.
And I think that also builds camaraderie.
Does.
Because now you're working with tools, you're working with people, and coming back to the people side of it. So if we build on our training programs and make better training programs, I think that builds people into saying, I want to do more for you.
I really think so too. And I've seen that with a couple places that we've been, other than not just our local areas, but I've seen that with, and there are some in the local areas too. Like there's some Monmouth County companies in Jersey that all of a sudden, they're like powerhouse companies. A lot of people are joining, running duty crews there. You know, that's something I brought to New Egypt. Listen, boys, we should be doing duty crews.
Yeah, I love duty crews.
And they don't want to, it got poo-pooed pretty quickly. Like, oh, well, we'd have to do this. We'd have to, yeah, do it. Do it.
Sometimes you got to put a little effort in.
Yeah, man. You know, you got to start thinking out of the box. And if you've got the will to make it better for your people, it'll get better. If you don't have the will to do this, to be a good chief, to be a good president of a volunteer fire company, to be a forward thinker, well, then why are you there, right? Like, you know.
And we have to be a little more progressive, I think, and think out of the box all the time because, you know, we say this a lot, you know, firefighters hate 2 things, right?
Yeah.
Right? Change and the way things are. But we have to make these steps to evolve the fire service to make it better and to build the volunteers up and give them what they need so that they want to stay and do more.
Yep. And I think to that end, it's just a matter of having some vision and getting out of your bubble too.
Absolutely.
Right? A lot of the guys in that volunteer fire company have never gotten out of that bubble. I was very blessed as a young guy. I got out of the bubble quick and learned from so many great people, you know, and just went to the conferences, made friends, and the next thing you know, the Dave Gallaghers, the Mike Champos, you know, we had so many of those guys come and teach at New Egypt in this little Volly town. In 2001, they bought their first aerial device. They had no aerials in that town. We relied on Fort Dix to come to
Mutually,
us. Yeah, and you never knew if you were getting them or not,
Right.
because if they were allowed off the base or not. So we needed it. we worked hard. We convinced the town. They bought us one. So it ended up not being exactly what we wanted because of money, but we had a 75-foot Quint. Still there. We learned to do truck work from a truck. For years, it was done off the second engine, right? But we brought in Champ. We brought in Dave Gallagher. I don't know if you remember Greg Einsfeld.
Oh, yeah.
Greg from Rescue Trade,
yep,
right?
Yep,
So
absolutely.
Greg came in. Dave put the group together. Dana Hannon was part of that group. Right? We lost Dana in 9/11.
Yep.
Dana was part of that group. And Bobby Swick from Ohio. For the guys who are watching, who want to learn about VES, and for the whatever naysayers on VES.
There's always that there.
Yeah. Go to YouTube, write in Bob Swick, VES Rescue, and you'll see Bobby going in on a one-man truck company, throwing his own ladder, going in a window and rescuing a baby.
You just posted that recently,
I
right?
did. I did.
We were talking about that, right?
Because somebody else had put something up about dragging ladders.
Yep.
And I said, hey, there ain't nothing wrong with dragging ladders.
Nope.
This guy taught it to me.
Absolutely.
And but anyway, they came to New Egypt, this little podunk town in the center of Jersey that takes in 300 runs. And it built brotherhood. It built camaraderie. It built so many good things. And these are the things that we have to continue to keep doing. You know, that was in 2001. That's 24 years ago.
Right.
I didn't have all this gray, you know, or all this. But these are the things that we can do. And I do see it more, you know, like with the training company, I was just in like 4 or 5 different volunteer fire departments in the last month. Obviously, there's a will in those places.
They want
you know?
training.
Yeah. But you're right. That's what I think draws us together. We got to have something that brings the guys together, right? The deputy chief in New Egypt, good dude. He just got on a job on Joint Base, military background, solid dude. He brought up in a company meeting about doing some kind of fun things together to try and build some camaraderie. And he threw in like, let's all go to a go-kart track or something. Let's do this. And they all shit on him.
Yep.
And I just sat there and I'm thinking, all right, maybe it's not my thing, you know, but I would, if I was off that night or around, I'll go just to be with the guys and show some brotherhood and camaraderie, you know. And they kind of shit on the guy instead of being like, hey, you know what? He's got an idea here. Let's get the boys together, whatever it may be, you know. And we're so much more diverse now with young guys and older guys and, you know, with some women that are in there. We're just not the same as the good old boys club.
No, well, and
So we should embrace that.
So-
and
you know?
and a lot of that was, you know, guys hung out because they like to drink and you know, that stuff's not what we're doing as much anymore. And you know, you're not getting on a rig if you're drinking. But when did on-scene training come about? Your training company, like, how did that all evolve and start? Is that from?
Yeah, so what happened, officially on paper, it started in 2004. That's when we incorporated it. But I was teaching at the local academy, and I was going to all these classes everywhere, right? I went to Illinois Fire Service Institute, FDIC, Firehouse Expo. Went out to Jimmy McCormick's thing, Fire Department Training Network.
Yeah.
And I was soaking in everything, and I knew there were things we weren't good at. So a lot of the local volunteer departments knew what I was doing, and they'd be like, "Hey, can you come over and help us out with this drill?" So I'd go. I never charged anybody anything. I didn't even know that was a thing at the time, to be honest. And so I was doing quite a bit of that.
So you were basically learning it, and you were bringing it back to your own department, and people were seeing this, and they're like, "Wow, he's teaching these guys, and he knows his stuff. Like, let's expand this."
Yeah, that's really kind of how it happened. And at work, I worked with some really good, solid firemen we trained a lot, and it was a training culture. The commissioners there, as much as I fought with them over the years, and there was one specifically, this guy's named Tom Flanagan. And Tom, he was the one who hired us, and he could be a prick. He was tough, and he worked full-time. He was a bigwig with the state of New Jersey with juvenile justice and the Attorney General's office, but he was a fireman through and through, the true Irish fireman through and through. And following things that Tom showed me made me way better. And he was a training guy. You got to get trained. You got to be better. And he really drilled on me pretty hard. I guess he saw something. And, so I was doing this, and then I was doing it a lot of different places. People would call me up, "Hey, can you come do it?" And, yeah. So my wife at the time, she's a forensic auditor. and a CPA. And she didn't have much faith in me, I don't believe. So she, which in the end made sense. But she's like, listen, before we get sued and lose our house because you did something stupid, why don't we start an LLC and do this the right way?
Right.
Because I don't want to lose my house over some guy
Get
doing
some
something
insurance.
stupid at a fire. Yeah.
Yep.
So that was honestly the reason I started the company as a company. And here we are, you know, it's over 20 years of incorporation, probably about 25 years of really doing it. And that's what all these young guys will say to me about, you know, I had a guy who owns a training company from out west called me the other day, and he's asking me for information. They're picking brains. How do you get your insurance? What do you do with this? What do you do with that? And I'm telling him, listen, man, it only took 20 years to be this overnight success.
Yeah,
you know,
takes time.
You know, you gotta dig in the trenches. You're working for T-shirts in the beginning, bro. And I remember coming home some nights and my ex-wife saying to me, "Oh, would you get another freaking T-shirt?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did."
So
You're paying more taxes and you're getting a T-shirt out of it. That's about it.
another question I had, because I saw it on your credentials. You started the Jersey Fools chapter.
I was one of the first Jersey Fools. Yeah.
So can you explain to people exactly what that society is and why you decided to start it in Jersey?
Yeah, so Fools International is the parent organization. FDIC, probably like 1990. I think my first year at Indy was 97. I think the show moved there in 96. I think I went 97, 98. So I meet these guys in Ike and Jonesy's bar, which was the bar. Mm-hmm. And I'm in class. Let me back up a little. I'm in class, and it's Pressler's live burn class.
Yeah.
So it's Bob Pressler, it's Timmy Klett, it's Mike Lombardo, it's Crystal Lombardo, it's, you know, all these guys. And I got bullshitting with them, and we're in the bar one night, and they're like, "Hey, come over here." And they start introducing me to guys. And they introduced me to John Simpson, Bart Simpson. He's a founding fool. And he introduced me to Mike Stallings, founding fool. And the more we get talking, they're telling me all about the fools. And they're like, "You're one of us. You have the mentality." So the Fools was basically these guys in Florida, Central Florida, Walt Lewis, Tommy Redman, Bart Simpson, Mike Stallings, and Mike Gilbert. And they were diehard firemen who saw the traditions and the culture of the fire service kind of going away. And this was in like 95, I think, maybe, something like that. And they saw it going away, and they saw that the brotherhood wasn't what it should be in a lot of the firehouses, career or volunteer, and they didn't care. And they all started as volunteers, just like us. And they said they would hang out in Mike Gilbert's backyard, and he had a bar back there, and they'd be drinking and just telling fire stories. And they would always bring their helmets and stuff, and, you know, it was just about the job. And they started calling themselves the Fools.
And that stands for, that's Fraternal Order of Leatherhead Society?
That's exactly it.
Fraternal Order of Leatherheads.
Yep. And doesn't matter if you got a plastic helmet or you got, you know, a, God forbid, a Euro helmet or whatever. But, you know, we're not going to go that far.
You like seeing those guys at
Metro.
FDIC.
Yeah. But the organization just took off. And what they did, they ended up expanding. And now there's thousands and thousands of Fools and hundreds of chapters. But the bottom line has always been about the brotherhood, taking care of one another. Training is a core fundamental of it all. And really just moving things forward for the fire service together and doing it the right way. And just doing the right thing. And the brotherhood of it has always been the most important thing. And you always tie the brotherhood to the training. Mm-hmm. It's just
absolutely.
It's just it. I mean, I've dedicated my life to this, and probably screwed up parts of my life because of my 100%.
Your love and your
belief.
passion for the fire service.
You know, I have a very recent. It's crazy that you just said you tie the brotherhood to the training. So I just went to FDIC for the first time this year. I'm a captain in my truck company right now.
Awesome.
So they sent a couple of us.
Awesome.
And for the first time,
great experience, right?
Awesome. Yeah, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
So that was the first, and my truck company just did the Northport extrication tournament.
Oh, I saw that online.
Yeah. We came in third place, first time.
That's outstanding.
And to tie brotherhood to training. So one, FDIC is obviously a training convention. I know it's an instructor's convention. We went and did live fire training.
It's training.
Yeah.
It's way beyond an instructor's convention.
Yeah,
at this
it's so
point.
much more.
At this
Yeah.
point,
Way
it's
beyond.
changed a lot. But
Way beyond.
I mean, the goal is to learn things and bring it back to your department and
Exactly.
teach other people.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's the goal of it. But
Yeah, so there's so much going on there. Yeah,
Yeah.
even beyond the instructor and training and everything. And there's
Yeah.
even so much more lectures. You walk through that freaking convention center, it's stuff you wouldn't even think that would be at a firefighting convention.
And some stuff you're like, yeah,
And
now
some
that ain't
stuff,
for me.
And some stuff I'm like, why
Absolutely.
is this here right
Yes,
now?
I agree with you.
So
I agree.
anyway, FDIC plus the extrication tournament, hanging out, being with the guys training for the extrication tournament and doing the training in FDIC, we became so tight.
Yes.
And I was like,
Yes.
it even, you know, I've been in the fire department for 10 years. I'm an officer now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm ebbing and flowing with the amount of time as a 28-year-old that I could contribute to the firehouse.
Yeah.
And after doing this stuff, it's, you know, over the last couple of months, I've been more involved, going to Indiana for a week, training every other week or every week before this extrication tournament. And now I'm like all in again, like I'm 18.
Yeah.
because it rejuvenates
It-
you.
yeah.
The training rejuvenates you. Like
Yes.
even with the Joey D conference now, right?
Absolutely.
The Joey D seminar, and that's brought a lot of that together too. Like even departments from Long Island, like they get a group of guys that come out and they train for the weekend, and they're like, you know, it brings like that freshness back, and like
Yes.
I like doing this. I want to do more of it.
My
And I
batteries
would
recharged.
You're right. You recharge that weekend, and
Yeah.
we get to all see each other, which makes us, you know, feel better.
Yeah.
But like I would love to see the Fools come back on Long Island. There was a chapter on Long Island
Yeah,
years ago.
Richie Nappy had
Yeah,
the chapter.
Richie,
chapter,
Mike
yeah.
Dugan,
And Mike
you know,
Dugan, yeah.
they pushed, and we had it for a little while, and it kind of, you know, went by the wayside over time. And you know, I would love to see it come back here again and start up, and maybe we could start it. We could
Yeah.
do it
You guys
ourselves,
could.
but
You
you know,
definitely
but
could.
bring back that brotherhood, sisterhood, get people together. You know, talk fire stories. Go to trainings and do things together. It would be a lot of fun.
Well, I think
was
was it
gonna say, even-
Huntington Fire Department, the Huntington Village Fire Department, they're doing something, I think in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
They'd
it's
reached out to
it's the
us.
end of the month. Yes.
Yeah, they'd reached out to us about, hey, you know, come down and check it out. I'm
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, they're gonna have
I'm-
judges and everything.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting married that day, so I can't be there. But
I'll be there.
yeah, but
On my
they had a thing
anniversary.
where they're bringing down people from different departments, and they're doing all these types of drills together.
Yeah, like
you know.
challenges.
Yeah, and I think it's a really cool thing. It's, you know, like you said, kind of reinvigorates everybody to
You know,
get
I've
more
never,
involved.
this extrication tournament, it freaking sparked something in me. I've never, you know, I've been in the truck company my whole career, call it that. And, you know, doing it, racing, and freaking like, we got to get those doors off in 3 minutes. Like, we got to get it down to 3 minutes. It freaking put something like behind the spark, and like, it just freaking pushed me. And I'm like,
awesome.
we're at that extrication tournament, and it's a lot of waiting. There's 29 teams there.
Yeah.
And when we went for the first run, they did it in like, there was like 3 cars, and it's 2 teams per car. One team does one side, the other team does the other. And once we went through the first round, you know, we're waiting around for a while because the first bracket is the biggest.
Doing push-ups and shit.
And I'm like freaking sitting there, and I'm like,
Watching the Volly
I
House
want to get the
Podcast.
fuck back in there. Like we're freaking sitting around for 45 minutes now.
Yeah.
I
That
thought
was a
this
blast.
podcast brought the rejuvenation back for you.
You know, actually, I was gonna say that too. This did spark a little bit.
Sure.
You know, it's new, and this is something that not many.
It's good
people get
talking
to
about
do.
this stuff. It like it even rejuvenates me sometimes. Like we talk
Yeah.
about things and I go home and I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
all fired up.
And you know what? It gives
Yeah.
me more. This keeps me like I post on the social media and stuff, and you know, doing that. It keeps my mind more involved during the day. You know, because I'm like, oh, let me find a cool article. I've been doing a lot of articles on, you know, recruiting and
retention.
Yeah.
And you know, it's all over the place.
And I think we're helping people, and that's part of this podcast
Yeah.
is getting information out there, sharing information with the volunteer services. And I think we're doing that, and we're rejuvenating other people to get
Yeah.
more involved in the
Yeah,
fire
I
service.
mean,
So-
you heard before. I mean, somebody had reached out from Texas. I mean, we're getting people reaching out from all over the country, which is cool because we kind of just like started this thing as
Yeah,
you know,
we're
let's
just
see how it
fooling
goes.
Yeah, you're way beyond Long Island.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting to hear perspectives from, you know, other areas of the country. And, you know, kind of to what Phil's point was before with like you know, this drill they just did and stuff like that. I also am a big proponent of when you're doing drills to make them fun and engaging and not just like a boring type of drill. You know, where you just
Not just a checkbox.
yeah, like
Yes,
you're going down to
agreed.
the firehouse. What do we got going on tonight? Oh, we're gonna go, pull hose and piss it water into a sump for an hour.
Yeah.
And the guy, that's how you lose guys.
Yeah, you gotta mix it up. You gotta make it not necessarily enjoyable, because listen, everybody takes their joy from a different place, I think. But you've got to make it interesting and pertinent. So if it's not pertinent, and if it's not making an impact on what they're going to do down the road, I'm not sure that we're doing what we need
worthy,
to do.
right.
Yeah, I mean, make it worth their time. That's the other thing. Nobody's got any time anymore,
Nope.
right? You're getting married now, right? You have any kids yet?
No.
Right? Wait till that starts.
Yeah.
It's another
Wait till
wave
that
you're going to go
starts.
through.
Yep.
But that's what we see in the fire service, right? I told the young guys, if you look at a guy's training file from the time he joined at 18 till the time he got married, right? It's this thick, okay? Then once he got married, it starts to thin out a little bit, right? Because he's got other things that he's got to take care of, and I understand that, or she has to take care of. And then you start having the kids, and then it's going to get tougher. Right? Because now the kid's got soccer, he's got baseball, your daughter's got this, it goes on. And then what I found was, and I found this more recently, as the kids got older, I've seen some of the older guys start to come back in.
Yep.
Right.
Because they missed it.
Yep.
And as long as we didn't alienate them and shit on them when they were slowing down, which unfortunately that happens too.
And that comes back to the retention problem.
Yes. So if we treated them like ladies and gentlemen from the start, hey, I understand you got to take a break for a few years, take a break for a few years, but come back. We'll retrain you up.
Absolutely.
Get you where you didn't forget everything. You didn't lose your balls, right? You're still tough. You still want to be a fireman. Okay, we'll bring you back and we'll do things, or be a chauffeur, whatever, But that's something that we have to work towards, because you're going to see that in your own careers. Like Kevin and I have lived it. You're going to live it one day.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be that older guy who watches the parade go by, right?
Right,
You
yeah.
still want to get on the big red rig. At least. That's how I felt. Like, I took a break in my volunteering. I got divorced in 2015, right? Pretty ugly divorce. Had to move out of town, start kind of over. Lived up in Hamilton, so I lived 20 minutes away. I kept my membership, but I wasn't active. If I was there, I'd jump on a rig, but I wasn't active. And then I got so busy with work, I just couldn't be active, and I had been active for 25 years there. So my name's on a lot of shit on those walls. And, but now, so I retired from the job, and I said, my tank is empty in Hamilton, New Jersey. It is on E. I needed to retire. There were a lot of reasons I needed to retire. But my fire service tank is still full.
Still
Right.
going strong.
Yeah, I was 53 when I retired. I think I got another dozen years in me. If I could get in
Absolutely,
a little
yeah.
better shape, I'd be in better shape,
That is a shape.
It's a shape, yeah. It's a shape. But, you think about it, there's still use. And in a volunteer fire service, we got to look beyond the tip of our nose. And here's a good example. So we had a guy, I was a young punk. I was 19, 20 years old. We're out on a drill. It's a long drill. We're laying a bunch of 5-inch hose. We're drafting. We're flowing master streams. And we did that probably every couple months, because, we were out in the country there. We needed to do it. And this guy walks up to us, and he's goofy as hell, right? When you first looked at him, shaggy hair, kind of walked funny, not a big dude, and a little bit older than us, probably in his late 20s, early 30s. And he talked with this North Jersey accent, almost a speech impediment, glasses this thick, and he's carrying a portable scanner, the old Bearcat handhelds.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, what is this whacker doing, right? And he goes, hey, man, I want to join the fire department. What do I got to do? I'm like, you got to go talk to the chief. And we're all thinking, like, what is this? We don't need this guy, Well, the chief looked at him one look and went, oh, boy. But gave him an application. Did the right thing. This guy, his name's Jerry Mercandani. To this day, I love this guy. He joined. He really only wanted to do like fire police.
He was an older gentleman.
He was not at the time.
No.
He was in his maybe 30s.
Okay.
Right? We were in our early 20s. He was probably 10 years older than us. Lived with his mother still, worked as a janitor or something. But he wanted to be a part of something bigger. You could just see it. And everybody's like, oh, this guy. But we had a rule. You had to go to firefighter 1. You had to pass firefighter 1 within a year to be a member. Everybody's like, he ain't going to do that. Well, he did it. I don't know how they got him through, but they did. And he did it. And he wore the gear, and he did what he had to do. But in the end, he wasn't going to be a good fireman. That wasn't his thing. He wanted to go out and be fire police, direct traffic, help out. But he turned into the best member we've had in years. Because anytime he saw a piece of paper on the floor, he picked it up. He saw that there was dirt on a truck, he went and washed the rig. Hey, can you come pull this rig out for me? I want to wash it. I'd get a phone call at home. Hey, what are you doing? Nothing. Can you come pull the rig out? It's dirty. You know? So even the goofiest dude that you expected to be not really much was a massive asset. And back then we did hall rentals, right? We worked hall rentals and dinners and we catered our own dinners. That's how we made money. And Jerry was there for every one of them. Who's mopping the hall the next day? Jerry's there Sunday morning mopping the hall. He turned into one of our best friends.
Wow.
You know?
That's great.
But when I met him, I was like, oh, he can't crawl a hallway like I can. He ain't me, you know? He ain't going on that roof. But in the end, what an asset to the New Egypt Volunteer Fire Company. And so I look at it and I see, you know, like I laugh at some of the posts that are out there. You see some of the hit it hard from the yard posts and all this stuff, and you're like, oh my God, what could that guy, you know? I get it, firefighting wise, but could they be a good member of your organization that makes a difference down the road? That's the difference between the careers and the volunteers. You know, now granted, should that person be who I rely on to stretch a line through the front door? Absolutely not. Right. But are they somebody who can be a valuable piece of our organization?
And even from like a camaraderie standpoint too, seems like a super nice guy.
Awesome
seems like
guy.
you guys all wound up, you know, binding to him.
I loved him. And we would, he was a big Buffett fan, just like me. We would come up here, right? Go to the shows up in
Jones Beach.
Yep. And we'd all either rent hotel rooms or we'd rent a house or something. We'd all stay together. And it was a bunch of firemen, and it was the brotherhood.
Yep.
And he'd be there with some really solid firemen, guys who you would want going through the door with you. He wasn't that guy. But you know what? He was the guy with the cones out in the street making sure I didn't get run over. That's okay.
Right, yeah, and that's
And we've talked
definitely a
about that,
job.
about how departments could bring people in for other uses, like,
Yeah.
you know, CPAs to do accounting work and
Exactly,
stuff like that.
exactly.
And, you know, it's just based on your department has to change those rules
Yep.
to make those people an asset for your organization. So
That's a big thing with Thibodeau.
I was just gonna say,
It's
I'm
a
like,
big
we gotta
thing
reach out to Thibodeau.
to run that fair.
You got to remember the name of that.
Right?
Oh, I will, I'll get it.
To run that fair.
it takes a lot of work.
Oh my God!
And if you-
hundreds and thousands of man hours.
And, you know, your firefighters, you want them on the rigs going to the calls, and
Right.
you want to run a big fair or something like that, you know, you need people that can handle that part too. So
Yeah.
there's a whole social end of the
Yes.
volunteer fire service, and then you have your response end.
Yep.
So you have to be able to manage both of those and make it work.
Let me ask you something. The departments that surround that area, are they similar?
no,
No.
no. In fact, most of them are going combination because they just don't have the people.
Really?
Another department that we train up there or down there, a little north of them, is Luling Volunteer Fire Department, and they're combination now. Volunteer fire chief still, volunteer assistant chief and deputy. They're all volunteers, but they have paid crews during the day, like 3-person crew. They don't do EMS except EMS
First responder.
They're all EMTs and stuff, but they do first responder. They were at that point where it was not make the calls, or, you know, and they're right outside New Orleans, so they're a pretty busy little place. And they had to make that tough decision. But I see them working so well together, and their chief is an absolute home run of a guy, a much older man who's working with a very young training officer, who's the assistant chief, and that's who I deal a lot with. And they've had their brushes with each other, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, because there's one's from here and one's from here, you know, age group wise and social aspects of it. But they are building something bigger than themselves, and they see it, and they know the importance of working together.
And it takes some effort.
It
you
does.
know, it's
And
not.
even that. Like one of the I think Benny's a captain. He's an older gentleman. His wife comes out to every training I've ever been to there, and she helps them with the lunches, and she takes all the photos for their social media. And you just know, watch your mouth around her and be a gentleman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you say the F-bomb in front of her, it ain't going to be pretty.
Right.
But
Sure.
but same thing. They're utilizing people to their fullest without even trying to, because the people want to be part of something bigger. And I think in the Northeast we're different because we're so fast paced. We're definitely a bit more abrasive.
Oh, absolutely.
Although the family,
Especially those Jersey people
you
over
ain't
there.
lying, yeah. 'Cause the Long Islanders aren't at all. But we have a tight family unit, right? Whether it be an Italian family, a Jewish family, an Irish family, we're a tight family unit. But within the family, it's not the same as down there. The people are different.
Different. Yeah.
And I think there's I wouldn't say kinder, gentler, but it's different.
Southern
Southern
hospitality.
hospitality,
Yeah, I mean, my son lives there.
Yep.
And when he told me that's where he was going, I was like, what? Like, you're from Jersey. You've been a Jersey Shore kid your whole life. Like, he's like, Dad, they're good people. I enjoy being with them. I got accepted to be on the job. I got friends. And he changed his whole life to do it. At 21, he moved. He was gone.
Wow.
And he lives down there, bought a house in Thibodaux, and just got hired. He starts Monday in Baton Rouge.
Nice.
So he went from
Damn.
he worked in Houma the last 3 years, wanted a bigger department, but it was the family atmosphere that made him more comfortable making that huge leap, and made me and his mom and my wife, his stepmom, all much more comfortable with him doing it because of the people. And they're just such good people.
I mean, think about when we've been to Texas and stuff, right?
Same.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Right. That Southern hospitality. You go down to Charleston area.
Yes.
It's different.
It's different, and I'm not saying we're wrong up
No,
here. We're
absolutely
just
not.
different. We're
Yeah.
just different.
I've been thinking about like this Thibodeau department. 'Cause This is so intriguing.
I know.
Phil
I'm
loves it.
literally going to reach out to them
I'm
tomorrow.
trying to think like what is the common denominator? It's got to be the people.
It is the people.
Cause like
It is the
I
people.
can't figure out what else.
But also with the people, though, it's there's a culture within that department. It
There
had to
is.
start from somewhere, and
Yes.
it's got to be maintained. And that's
Well,
I think you and I are on the same
Yeah.
wavelength. I
If
gotta
it's
figure out what's
the
going
way
on.
they're training, and that's that culture, and I think that a lot of it can come back
Yeah.
to that. They're big into training, camaraderie. That's your culture.
But I'm just curious to know, like, we just went over all the stuff, the different ebbs and flows that you go through in your life. I'm sure the same thing is happening down there.
Happens everywhere.
But,
Yeah.
okay, what are we doing different
Yeah,
there?
something's maintaining.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you another one, a good example. We talked about the Fools, and we got off a little bit, but I got the chance to teach for the 50th State Fools in Hawaii. Not a bad gig, right?
Wow, sign me up.
Everybody wants that gig, I can tell you. And Shane Ferruta is in charge of all their training. You met Shane at FDIC and stuff.
Absolutely.
And Shane teaches for me with On Scene, and he brought me in to do the commercial fireground stuff for them for a day. And one of the coolest things they do, it's a weekday thing, and people fly in from Maui and from the Big Island, and it's all in Honolulu, and it's just a one-day lecture series. That's all they do because they really can't. The logistics of doing more
Oh,
would
it's
just
gotta
be
be
brutal there.
insane.
So, but one of the coolest things, there were a few of the wives there, and they help out with setting things up and doing all that. But they have a little area in this big kind of bar restaurant thing that they do it all in, and they set that up for the children, right? Some food for the kids, bunch of games, toys, and they say this is the Kiki area, and that's where all the family like Ohana's everything over there. And they do. And so a lot of dudes who just got off work and their wife's at work and they're supposed to be babysitting, they come to the training anyway, and they bring their children, and their children are all playing over there. So here I am teaching, and I can see the kids off in the corner, with some of the wives or the older children are watching them. It's the family atmosphere that I remembered as the New Egypt Volunteer Fire
young
Company.
volunteer.
We
So
did
there-
that when I was a kid.
There's
you know?
a bunch of volley companies out in Hawaii.
Nah, they're career. They're mostly all career. over
Gotcha.
there. There may be some volleys that I don't really know that.
They call them Mahalis.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if there's any volleys over in Hawaii, but these guys. But the same thing though. The family, right? It's that family. So these guys can train, and any of the women who are firefighters on the job there, they can bring their kids with them if they need to. Husband's at work driving a truck, and you're home supposed to be watching the kid today. Come to training. We're going to take care of your kid. It's that tight knit group. And our volley departments were that way when we were young.
Yeah.
Your dad would sit at the bar, and you'd be over there playing shuffleboard or whatever,
Yeah.
And that's how it was.
That's how I got involved in the juniors. From being around the firehouse so much, it was like as soon as I was 14, I couldn't wait.
Same.
Get me in.
Right? Same. Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know how I joined? I joined, I was going to Suffolk Community College.
Okay.
I joined because I passed the firehouse every day. And I was just like, I would pass, and like, I had a class on, oddly enough, Sunday morning, and that's when Sunday morning drill was.
Yeah.
I would pass during the week, a couple cars in and out. I'd pass on Sunday morning, and the lot's full. And I'm looking in there, I'm like, well, all the fire trucks are there. I'm like, and everyone's just there. There's trucks in the back and
They're all
everything.
hanging
I'm
out.
like,
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
It's all the jelly donuts in the
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah.
That's what you go for. You get your jelly donut, you go to
Yeah.
drill.
And
That's right.
I literally applied online, and I was like, all right,
That's
here I
awesome.
am 10 years later. I sat down at my first company meeting as captain, and I kind of sat there, and I was like, damn. I'm like,
Can't believe I'm captain.
didn't expect to be sitting here or even doing this for so long.
And believe me, man, it goes in a blink of an eye. Like Kevin could tell you, we've been doing this a long time, right? And if I could come back as you, I would do it tomorrow.
Oh, I say that all the time.
I would go back and start this whole thing. I'd make some changes.
Absolutely. I would do things differently.
I wouldn't be as much of an asshole as I was when I was younger, or maybe even when I was
Well,
older.
I certainly
but
can't wait to be sitting in the back of the truck instead of sitting in that front seat.
listen, the right front seat to me was the best ride in my life. I on the career side, I was a captain for 20 years. Right? I was in 10 years. I got promoted. I was a captain for 20, and then I made chief. And those were not the most fun years.
Yeah,
I
a lot of
enjoyed the challenge of
responsibility.
running fires. I did enjoy the challenge of running a training division that was way understaffed and overworked. It was a great challenge, and I felt like I made a lot of impact. But man, those 20 years in the right front seat were the best ever. I was in every
a lot of
fire.
fun.
I was in every fire with my guys. I could train my guys. They were. A lot of them I felt were a reflection of what I provided to them, and they made me really proud. And I'm still,
Absolutely.
to this day, my proudest thing is that damn near every guy that's ever worked for me that I can think of who tried for the next level got there. And he's a good captain, not just some bum that is filling a seat, because everybody's got those, right? But they're good firemen and good captains and good bosses and leaders. And I mean, I'm sure they all have their flaws just like I have mine. But I'm really proud of them. In fact, I'll give you this piece, right? My wife and I are in Maui, and we spent a week in Maui before we went to Honolulu to teach. We said, let's make this a 2-week trip. We're going to enjoy ourselves. And she's a big scuba diver, so we were diving in Maui and stuff. I'm in the grocery store in Maui, and I get this phone call from one of my guys who was one of my probies, Pat O'Reilly. And he said, Chief, you're one of the first ones. I just wanted to call you. The results came out, and he was like 2 or 3 on the captain's list. And it was a big list. There were a lot of guys tested for that spot. And I'm telling you, I was so freaking overwhelmed with happiness and pride. Like, all right, I wasn't easy on this kid. I was definitely not easy on him, but I treated him like a human. And, I got to know him, and I got to know his family and his, at the time, fiance and now wife, and they just had a baby recently. And it just made me feel so good that I know the job's in good hands because I helped put it in another set of good hands.
Yeah, and the fact that you were one of his first calls, that
It meant a lot.
testament. Yeah,
It meant a lot. When I told
It's
my
always
wife,
nice when you get those calls, right?
yeah, it is. When I told my wife, I said, Jen, man, that was O'Reilly, that was Patrick, and she's like, oh, what's up? And I told her, she's like, oh, that's so great. We were
awesome.
just so happy for him. And I mean, even in the volunteer side of it, there's guys that I look at and I see them. Thibodeau's a prime example, right? We started teaching in Thibodeau like at least 10 years ago, maybe longer, maybe 15 years ago, I don't know. But one of the kids who's a lieutenant in Thibodeau right now, a kid named Luke Pate, he just started a career job in the next town over, Schriever. Luke was like 12 years old, right? Maybe younger. And he was there. His dad was the fire chief, really solid guy too. And Luke was trying to sneak into the burn building with us.
Nice.
And the guys were trying to help him sneak. My own
Get him in there.
My own instructors
awesome.
were like, "Come on, let's get Lukey in there," And his dad's like, "Keep that kid out of there,"
Yeah.
But and now to look at him, and he's got a long way to go. But he loves
He's
it.
a
He's a kid, But Yeah, man, he's dialed in. He loves the job. He and my son are very close friends now. And I'm proud to see what he's doing. I still kick his ass here and there because I see stupid shit. But we were in Thibodaux, last trip to Thibodaux. We're doing classroom, and I was the last one to do the classroom for the day. Boom, they get hit out for a house fire. I'm like, well, my class is over for the day, right? Everybody takes off.
But I'm going.
Yeah, I hop in with the chief.
I'm going.
Yeah,
Yep.
I hop in with the chief. I'm in the front seat with the chief, and we pull up, and this thing's going pretty good, right? Section 8 house, ripping pretty good in the attic. And first line, Luke and another guy going through the door. Second line, my kid and another guy going through.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It makes you proud to see these kids who are little kids who didn't really know shit from Chinola,
Grow.
and now these guys are leading it. And they're leading it because they've had good leadership.
Right.
So they can do that. And it all falls back, right? And I watched Chief Richardson talking with you guys, and of course I admire him for a lot of reasons, but the fact that the man who was the chief of the largest department, in the United States and one of the most important departments in the world could come back and constantly say it's about my people.
Absolutely.
It's about my people. And writing the notes to people. Right?
Yeah, that's a
I
big
did the
one.
same thing for years. I can tell you this, as a volunteer chief, you want to impact your community. I'm standing in the engine room of the firehouse one day by myself. Doors are open. It's a nice spring day. In walks this beautiful woman. And I'm like, what is she doing here? We had a fatal accident that weekend. And we had cut this man out of a car, and he had taken a guardrail to the side of the head, through the windshield, off the side of his head, and both his children were in the back seats, in car seats. Not injured, thank God. Right? Went through a ditch. I don't know if he'd fallen asleep or what happened, but so we ended up having to do the extrication on him. I was the first or second one there as a chief. Got the kids, took the kids out in their car seats, This woman comes in and she said, "Are you the fire chief?" I said, "Yes." She goes, and her boys were little. The littlest one was a baby. The other one maybe 3 or 4 years old. And she says, "I'm the widow of this gentleman." I'm like, oh, shit, right? I'd never had to deal with that, really. And she said, "My one son said that my husband was speaking right up till you guys took my son out of the car. Can you tell me what he said?" Now, there was nothing coherent, right? I mean, he had gray matter coming out. He was agonal breathing. And I said to her, "Ma'am, I didn't hear anything. Honestly, the noise of the equipment," and I wasn't lying, but I didn't want to tell her, "Listen, his brains were out, man. Like, there's no way he spoke."
Right.
But I said to her, "I just didn't hear anything." And I said, "I'm really sorry, but, and I gave her all the condolences. And if there's anything we can do for you, if you need something done at your house, in between, we're more than happy. You just call." I gave her my business card. I said, "You need your pool opened, whatever, we'll do it for you." Because, and it hit me. And I was young. I was like 25, 26. I was a volunteer fire chief. And I wrote her a letter. I hand wrote her a letter. I went up in the chief's office a couple of days later, and I felt so bad for her. And she wasn't much older than me. And I wrote her a letter and just basically said to her, how sorry I was for her loss, but that I really hoped that she would stay in our town, that our town would be there to support her, and that our fire department and our personnel and our ladies auxiliary, because we had a really busy ladies, very active auxiliary, if she needed anything, please call on this fire department. And I don't care day or night. Whatever it is. If you need air conditioners taken in and out of your house, you call us, we'll do it. Because I just felt like we could be doing more for everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
I agree.
And she sent me a little note thanking me, and I kept it. I don't know if I still have, but I kept it. And her children, she stayed in that house, and I don't know if she's still there, but that was 30 years ago.
Right.
So her kids are adults now. They got their own kids probably, but it's about interaction. It's about you being good to people. As a leader, as a chief, as a fire company president, hell, as the ladies auxiliary president, right? My ex-wife is a ladies auxiliary president now. My daughter is in the ladies auxiliary, runs some of their big charity events. It's as a community, I was kind of proud of my daughter. She was the first ladies auxiliary member to ever be suspended.
Oh boy, it runs in the family, huh?
Glasses back on.
It does.
That's awesome.
I laughed like hell when I heard about it. I'm like, you got to be shitting me. She goes, no, I really pissed them off, Dad.
Oh my God.
I'm like, yeah, you did. But anyway,
Screen.
So anyway, yeah. So it's about the people, and it's about us connecting with the people. And if you connect with your membership and you treat them right, and you give them the things they need, right? They need support. They need brotherhood. They don't need to be chopped down and their balls busted basically every day. They need to be lifted up. And I've worked for guys who were great at that. I've seen volunteer chiefs and career chiefs, but volunteer chiefs who are horrible at it. Right? In my own volunteer fire company, to this day, there's guys that ride those rigs. If I said their names, everybody in the room would go, "Yep." Mm-hmm. Don't treat people shitty because you're not going to keep them. Why would I want to be there when I could be out with my wife or my girlfriend or my kids or whatever my hobby is if I'm a young single guy? Why would I come down here just to be treated like shit when I'm giving of you my time and my effort in a job that could kill me?
Yep.
Right.
A lot of the articles I read, they say if they're doing it for free, they might as well be happy doing it.
I agree.
So
I agree.
And with that comes the community as well, right? We exist because of the community, and we should try to have the proper services for them
Right.
at any point and try to help. And we've talked about this, and I've said we should be trying to do more with the community, work with the community, and do things for them.
Yeah. None of it's easy.
It's not easy, and we don't have the time as it is just to handle the calls, but
No.
we have to do more.
Especially a place like where you're at. You're running 3,000 runs. You're beating the snot out of the guys.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. And I commend anybody that can do it because it's a lot. I don't want to roll out of bed at 3 a.m. for wires down at my point in my career. I don't do it. I should, and I live 7 miles from the firehouse. So for me, the first due is gone 90% of the
7
time.
miles. We had a guy who couldn't join the department 7 miles away, remember?
Yeah.
Oh, 7 minutes away.
Whoa,
7
man.
minutes away,
That's right,
yeah.
Well, that we used to have that.
Yeah.
We used to have that. If you lived outside the township, you couldn't join.
Mm-hmm.
But yet outside the township was a half a mile.
Yeah.
The guy lived a half a mile from the firehouse, but he wasn't allowed to join. Give me a break.
We were talking about that in the last episode of how these departments exist and what the rules are and who can join and who can't join. And we all need volunteers, but we still have all these rules in
We
place.
still shit on them.
We still think it's 1970 for some reason. I don't know why.
You got to find a way.
So, Chief, before we close this out,
Yeah.
do you have any, I guess, thing to wrap it all up into one big thing, just for people to know?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just do right by everybody you can. There will be people that test you, that treat you like shit. You don't have to kiss their ass by any means, but you just got to do the right thing the whole time. And if you're doing the right thing, and if you're working for the good of the organization, the good of your people, and the good of the community, it can't be about you. It's got to be about them. It's got to be about your people in the building, right? Whether you're a career chief, a volunteer chief, the president of the volunteer fire company, and you got to look at big picture, not just how it affects this individual, but how's it? If I do this for Kevin, what am I doing for you? So we do have to. I told my kids, you want to go to the fair? You want fair? Wait till July and buy tickets, because that's the only thing in life that's fair, right? It's just how it works. But we want to treat everybody as equally as we possibly can. We don't want to show favoritism if we can avoid it. But we got to take care of them, and we got to be there for them. We got to be there for their mental health now. We live in a different time, right? The old "suck it up, Buttercup" thing is over. I know. I'm sure that today, when our guys at work lost their captain, I was told that they were all meeting at one of the firehouses. They had called in CISM and all that. It wasn't a traumatic death, right? I mean, the guy didn't die at a fire. He wasn't killed in a car crash or anything. But I commend them that they recognize that there may be some people really hurting. You may not need that. Maybe that's not for me, but I'm giving it to you if you need it.
Right.
So we have to look at the bigger scope of things. And for our older members, you got to understand times have changed. This is not your fire service as it was in 1988, 1985, 1995. It has changed. You guys are different than me and Kevin. and we have to be able to relate to each other. It's got to be a two-way street, but we have to find a way to relate. It can't be the hard-nosed, this is the way it is, you know. That shit don't fly anymore, and anybody that says it does is probably running their organization into the ground.
Right.
Agreed.
You know.
Well, Chief, I appreciate you, or I'm sorry, we appreciate you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my fucking podcast. We appreciate you coming out, taking the ride out from Jersey in this shit weather, and giving us some of your knowledge and telling us about Thibodaux Fire Department.
Yeah, we got to look into them.
Yeah.
We're there 2 or 3 times a year at least, so you're welcome to come down with
Yeah, I
us.
would love to check them out.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks again, and we'd love to have you back on at some point.
Yeah, we'll pick a nice sunny day that I can.
Yeah,
Summertime, we can go to the beach.
Yeah.
Kevin's got a place in Venice that we're going to start recording.
I'd be good with that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's Naples, by the way.
Oh,
It is Naples, and I tried to meet up with Kevin while my wife
He
and I
was
were
down there. They were down there when I was down there.
Yeah,
we
just
tried to meet up.
We couldn't make it mesh, but yeah.
He was in Fort
man.
Myers, and
Yeah.
I was in Naples.
Yeah, but no, I appreciate it, and listen, you guys are doing great stuff. The fact is, we need volunteers still. Most
Absolutely.
communities, so many of these communities, and I know I was a union guy for 30-some years, right? Was vice president of our union. I understand that the union's point is, well, volunteers take jobs away from union members. Bullshit. There are certain towns that cannot afford it. They just
Never.
can't.
Right.
So what are they going to? They're going to go half-assed, maybe pay some money to one of the local companies near them. It's all going to be a mess anyway. So that's not what we're doing. We need our volunteers. Our career staff will continue to grow. It's always going to grow. It has to. But we can do it together. And, like I said, even in New Egypt, we're a combination department now. There's days it doesn't go well. There's days that I think it's going really well. Find the way. Find the way and have the will to do it. You got to have the will. Without the will, none of it happens.
At the end of the
Right.
day, it's about the taxpayers. Got to
Yeah,
take
right.
care of your people.
Who would they always say, who would you want coming for you or your family? I don't live in New Egypt anymore, right? I live in next town over. But my ex-wife and my daughter live there. My mom still lives there. My daughter's in that house. They damn sure better figure it out. My 90-year-old mom owns a business that's 30 acres, one of the biggest businesses in town. She's had fires.
Yep.
We needed them. They did their job well. I want them to keep doing it.
You can't make
Right.
excuses.
Nope.
All right.
All right,
That's
that's a wrap.
episode 19.
Episode 19. Thanks
Chief
again,
Aaron
Chief.
Heller.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome.